The locker room fell deadly silent as veteran Derek Sullivan viciously mocked young LeBron's mother and the sacrifices she made right in front of the entire team. Sullivan expected to see the rookie break, but instead witnessed a response so powerful it would echo in his mind for the rest of his life. Before diving into this incredible story of family honor and character, make sure to subscribe to our channel and share in the comments what family means to you. The Miami Heat training facility had never felt colder than it did that November evening, despite the warm Florida air outside. Derek Sullivan, the team's 31-year-old veteran shooting guard, sat in his usual spot by the far wall, methodically wrapping tape around his ankles while his calculating eyes surveyed the younger players around him. 13 years in the NBA had taught Sullivan many lessons, but perhaps none more important than this. Rookies needed to be put in their place before they got too comfortable. Sullivan's approach was surgical in its cruelty. He would identify what mattered most to each young player, then systematically attack it until their confidence crumbled. Some players cracked under criticism of their skills, others when their work ethic was questioned. But the deepest wounds always came from attacking something personal, something sacred. LeBron James, at just 19 years old, and in his second NBA season, had already made waves throughout the league with his incredible talent and mature leadership. But to Sullivan, LeBron was still just another overhyped kid who hadn't yet faced real NBA adversity. Tonight, Sullivan had decided, that would change. The practice session had ended 20 minutes earlier, and most players were in various stages of cooling down and changing clothes. LeBron sat quietly in the corner near his locker, his phone in hand, reading messages from his mother, Gloria. The gentle smile spreading across his face as he read her words of encouragement and love was impossible to miss. Today's message was simple but powerful. How did practice go today, baby? Remember, I'm always proud of you. I love you so much. Sullivan watched this tender moment with the predatory instincts of someone who had spent years identifying weaknesses. He saw opportunity in LeBron's obvious affection for his mother, vulnerability in the young man's unguarded emotional response to her words. Rising from his seat, Sullivan began his calculated approach to the center of the locker room. "Hey, everyone," Sullivan called out, his voice cutting through the casual conversation and music that had filled the space. "Look at our superstar rookie over there, still texting mommy like he's in high school." The other players glanced up, their conversations dying away as they recognized the familiar tone. Sullivan's psychological games were well known throughout the team, and veteran players had learned to either participate or stay silent. Few had the courage to intervene. LeBron looked up from his phone, his expression shifting from contentment to wariness in an instant. He could sense the predatory energy radiating from Sullivan, but he kept his voice calm and measured. "Derek, I'm just checking in with my family. There's nothing wrong with that." Sullivan's smile widened like a shark sensing blood in the water. "Oh, there's nothing wrong with it," he said with exaggerated sympathy. "It's actually kind of sweet how dependent you still are on mommy. Tell me, does she still remind you to brush your teeth before bed?" A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the room, though most players kept their eyes down, unwilling to meet LeBron's gaze. LeBron set his phone aside and stood up, his impressive frame unfolding to its full 6 feet 8 inches height. "Derek, I'd appreciate it if you didn't bring my mother into whatever point you're trying to make." But Sullivan was just getting started. "Whatever point I'm making?" he repeated with mock confusion. "I'm not making a point, LeBron. I'm stating facts. Everyone in this league knows about your sob story. Poor single mother, moving from apartment to apartment, struggling to make ends meet. It's very touching, really." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as Sullivan's words hung in the air. Even the veterans who usually stayed out of these confrontations shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This felt different, more personal and cruel than Sullivan's usual rookie hazing. LeBron's jaw tightened, his hands slowly clenching into fists at his sides, but his voice remained controlled. "Derek, I'm asking you to stop talking about my mother." Sullivan saw the emotional reaction he was looking for and pressed forward with renewed aggression. "Oh, now you're getting sensitive? That's the problem with kids like you, LeBron. You get handed everything because of some tragic backstory, and you never develop real toughness. You think having a struggling single mother makes you special?" The veteran forward, Marcus Thompson, looked up from his own locker, concern creasing his weathered features. "Derek, maybe you should." Sullivan silenced him with a sharp gesture. "I'm teaching our rookie an important lesson about NBA life, Marcus. Stay out of it." Turning back to LeBron, Sullivan continued his assault with calculated malice. "You want to know what I think about your precious mother, LeBron? I think she failed you. A real parent would have prepared you for the real world instead of coddling you and making you think the universe revolves around your feelings." The locker room fell into complete silence. Every player present understood that Sullivan had crossed a line that should never be crossed. But the veteran's years of intimidation had created an atmosphere where few dared to speak up. LeBron stood completely still for a long moment, his chest rising and falling with controlled breathing. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but filled with a power that made every person in the room lean forward to listen. "Derek," he said, his words measured and deliberate, "are you finished?" Sullivan, misinterpreting LeBron's calm demeanor as defeat, smiled triumphantly. "Oh, I'm just getting started, rookie. See, this is what I'm talking about. You can't handle even the slightest criticism without getting all emotional, and that's enough." The two words cut through Sullivan's rant like a sword through silk. LeBron stepped forward, and suddenly the entire dynamic in the room shifted. This was no longer a veteran bullying a rookie. This was a young man defending something sacred. "Derek," LeBron continued, his voice growing stronger with each word, "you want to know about my mother? Let me tell you about Gloria James." Sullivan's confident expression began to waver as he realized he had awakened something unexpected in the young player. "My mother was 16 years old when she had me," LeBron said, his voice filling the silent locker room. 16. She could have given me up, could have taken the easy path that everyone expected her to take. But you know what she did instead? She chose to fight. LeBron took another step forward, his presence commanding the attention of every person in the room. "She worked 3 jobs, Derek. 3 jobs to keep a roof over my head. She cleaned office buildings at 5 in the morning, worked as a cashier during the day, and waited tables at night. Do you know why she did that? For me. Everything she did was for me." Sullivan tried to interject, but LeBron's momentum was unstoppable now. "You want to talk about failure, Derek? Let me tell you what failure isn't. Failure isn't a teenage mother who sacrificed her youth to raise her son. Failure isn't a woman who went hungry so her child could eat. Failure isn't someone who walked miles in worn-out shoes because she gave her last $20 to make sure I had basketball sneakers." The emotional power in LeBron's voice was affecting everyone in the room. Several players had stopped what they were doing entirely, drawn in by the raw honesty of his words. "You know what my mother taught me, Derek?" LeBron continued, his voice growing even more passionate. "She taught me that strength isn't about tearing other people down to make yourself feel better. She taught me that real toughness comes from loving someone more than you love yourself. She taught me that character is what you do when nobody's watching, and dignity is what you maintain when everyone is." Sullivan's face had gone pale as the full weight of LeBron's response hit him. This wasn't the breakdown he had expected. This was something far more powerful. "My mother taught me that family isn't just about blood, Derek. It's about loyalty. It's about sacrifice. It's about standing up for the people who stood up for you when you had nothing. And you know what else she taught me? She taught me to feel sorry for people who don't understand what that kind of love means." LeBron paused for a moment, letting his words sink in before delivering his final statement with devastating quiet force. "So when you insult my mother, Derek, You're not insulting some failure who couldn't handle life. You're insulting the strongest person I've ever known. You're insulting someone who turned a teenage mistake into a love story that changed both our lives. And you're showing everyone in this room exactly who you are. The silence that followed was profound and complete. Sullivan stood frozen, his mouth slightly open, as the full realization of what he had done and what he had unleashed washed over him. LeBron walked back to his locker with quiet dignity, gathering his belongings while every eye in the room followed his movement. As he slung his bag over his shoulder and headed toward the door, he paused and turned back to Sullivan one final time. "Derek, my mother also taught me about forgiveness. She taught me that holding on to anger only hurts the person carrying it. So I forgive you for what you said tonight. But I want you to understand something. I will never forget it, and neither will anyone else in this room." With that, LeBron walked out of the locker room, leaving behind a silence so complete it felt like the aftermath of an earthquake. Sullivan remained standing in the center of the room, his earlier confidence completely shattered. Around him, his teammates were slowly returning to their activities, but the atmosphere had changed forever. Nobody would look directly at him. Marcus Thompson was the first to break the silence, his voice filled with disappointment and anger. "Derek, that was way over the line. Way over." Other players began to voice their agreement, their disapproval evident in both their words and their body language. Sullivan found himself completely isolated, forced to confront the magnitude of what he had done. "I was just—" Sullivan started, but the words died in his throat. There was no justification for what he had said, no explanation that could undo the damage he had caused. That night, Sullivan drove home through the empty Miami streets, LeBron's words echoing in his mind with haunting persistence. When he walked through the door of his own house, his wife Sarah immediately noticed something was wrong. "What happened tonight?" she asked, studying his troubled expression. Sullivan collapsed into his favorite chair, his head in his hands. "I did something terrible, Sarah. I attacked a young man's mother, said things that—" He looked up at his wife with eyes full of regret. "He taught me a lesson about family that I'll never forget. And I'm ashamed of myself." Sarah sat down beside her husband, taking his hand in hers. "What are you going to do about it?" "I'm going to apologize," Sullivan said quietly, "and I'm going to spend the rest of my career trying to make up for what I did tonight." The next morning, Sullivan arrived at the practice facility early, hoping to catch LeBron before the team meeting. He found the young player in the weight room, going through his usual pre-practice routine with focused intensity. "LeBron," Sullivan called out quietly, his voice lacking any of its usual commanding presence. LeBron looked up, his expression neutral but not hostile. "Derek, I owe you an apology," Sullivan said, stepping closer but maintaining respectful distance. "What I said last night about your mother, there's no excuse for it. I crossed a line that should never be crossed, and I'm deeply sorry." LeBron set down his weights and turned to face Sullivan fully. "Derek, I appreciate the apology. My mother taught me that everyone deserves a chance to make things right when they recognize their mistakes." Sullivan nodded gratefully. "Your mother sounds like an incredible woman, LeBron. I wish I had understood that before I opened my mouth last night." "She is incredible," LeBron confirmed with a slight smile. "And Derek? She also taught me that we're all human. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after we realize we've made them." The two men shook hands, and Sullivan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. But more than that, he felt a profound respect for the young man standing before him, and for the woman who had raised him to respond to cruelty with such grace. From that day forward, Sullivan's approach to younger players changed completely. Instead of trying to break them down, he began building them up. He became known as a mentor rather than a tormentor, and he never forgot the lesson that LeBron James had taught him about the power of family, the importance of respect, and the strength that comes from love rather than fear. Years later, when Sullivan would tell this story to other players, he would always conclude with the same reflection. That night, I tried to destroy a young man by attacking what he loved most. Instead, he showed me what real strength looks like. LeBron James didn't just defend his mother that night. He taught me that the strongest people in the world are those who fight for something bigger than themselves. If you enjoyed this incredible story of family honor and character, don't forget to hit that like button. If you want more content about these profound basketball moments, don't forget to subscribe. Share in the comments what family means to you and how it has shaped who you are today.